All right, let's just jump right in. Think about it for a second. How many times have you already said, "I'm so busy today"? It's like a reflex, right? In our world, being busy is this badge of honor, a sign that we're important, that we matter. But what if that constant obsession with being in motion is actually the single biggest thing holding us back?
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. We're in this culture of, hyper productivity, where a calendar that's packed to the gills is somehow a status symbol. We just pile things on, hoping that all this frantic running around will somehow magically add up to a life of meaning. But let's be honest, most of the time, it just leads to burnout.
So, here it is, the big question we're going to tackle. What if all that busyness is just, well, noise? What if it's the very thing that's stopping us from doing our best, most creative work, from thinking clearly, from actually enjoying our lives? It sounds totally backward, I know, but the evidence is pretty fascinating. And this slide, wow, this really just lays it all out there. Take a look at this breakdown of a typical 8-hour day. Less than half of it, just 45%, is spent on the stuff we were actually hired to do. A massive 40% chunk is just eaten up by meetings and interruptions. Then you throw another 14% on top for email, and you realize we're not busy doing our jobs, we're busy doing the stuff around our jobs. Okay, so let's really get into this modern-day tyranny of busy. Where in the world does this pressure come from, and what is it actually doing to our brains, to our ability to just get things done? The author Johann Hari, he calls our collapsing attention span a full-on crisis. He says our focus is literally being stolen from us. And at work, you see it everywhere. More mistakes, forgetting things constantly, having to redo work you just did. And the irony? Tasks take longer, which just pushes us to work even more hours just to feel like we're treading water. And let's be real, a huge culprit is right there in our pockets. Look at that number on the screen, 2,617. That is the average number of times we touch our phones every single day. Each little tap, each swipe, it's a tiny crack in our concentration. It makes it nearly impossible to get into that flow state, that deep, focused place where all our best work happens. Our attention isn't just divided anymore. It's been shattered into a million little pieces. So, this brings up a really crucial point. If our ability to focus is this broken, then you have to ask, is the very structure we work in, this 100-year-old 40-hour week, is it even fit for purpose anymore? This timeline tells a really important story. See, the 40-hour week wasn't dreamed up for knowledge workers like us. It was a victory won against these brutal 80 to 100-hour weeks back in the industrial age. Even when Henry Ford made it famous, it wasn't about boosting creativity. It was because he realized his factory workers were just more efficient when they got more rest. And this is the key. The 40-hour week was designed as a ceiling to protect people, not a target for peak performance. And what's wild is that this isn't some new idea. The philosopher Bertrand Russell was making this argument way, way back in 1935. He saw this gospel of work as a source of misery, not virtue. And he believed that the future of humanity was in working less, not more. Talk about being ahead of your time. Which leads us to this kind of radical, but more and more evidence-backed idea. Could the real path to doing more, both for ourselves and for our companies, actually be to work less? So Russell's argument was basically two things. First, he said the idea that work is some noble thing was just a story the rich told to keep everyone else busy and exploited. And second, and remember, this was in 1935, he argued that technology was already so good that we could take care of everyone with just a tiny fraction of the labor. He actually proposed a 4-hour workday. Can you even imagine what he'd say about the world we live in today? And guess what? Modern data totally backs him up. This chart is kind of mind-blowing. Over on the left, you've got Luxembourg. They're the most productive country, and their average work week is just 29 hours. Now compare that to places like the US, Japan, and Canada. Longer hours, lower productivity. The data is clear. After a certain point, more hours doesn't equal more output. In fact, it's often the exact opposite. All this data is what's fueling these real-world experiments with things like the 4-day work week. And the results? They're amazing. People have better work-life balance, burnout drops, and they're actually more productive because they're well-rested and focused. I mean, look at that Roberts Co. case study. Construction workers on a 5-day week were just as productive as when they worked 6 days, and a whole lot happier, I'm guessing. This all leads us to an even deeper, more profound idea. What if the secret isn't just about working fewer hours, but about reclaiming the value of doing nothing at all? So the Dutch, they have this amazing word for it, niksen. It's not about being lazy, it's the intentional, deliberate act of being idle, with no goal. It's literally just staring out the window or listening to music without doing anything else. It's about embracing purposelessness, which, in our culture that's obsessed with goals, is a pretty revolutionary thing to do.
And hey, this isn't just some modern Dutch thing either. The ancient Romans had a concept called Otium. This was leisure with dignity. They saw it as the time when true self-discovery happened. They truly believed that great art, great philosophy, great science, all of it could only come from that space that was totally free from the demands of business.
Now, it's really important to get this. Nixon is not the same thing as mindfulness. They're different. Mindfulness is all about focused attention. Its motto is, be here now. Nixon, on the other hand, is about letting your mind wander wherever it wants to go. It has no goal. Its motto is simply, just be. And that kind of undirected, guilt-free idleness can be a super powerful cure for burnout. It gives our brain a totally different kind of rest. And all of this brings us to what might be the ultimate expression of this whole philosophy, something we can apply directly to our work, the ancient Taoist concept of Wu Wei. Wu Wei often gets translated as non-doing, but a much better way to think about it is effortless action. It's the polar opposite of our modern obsession with grinding, with hustle, with forcing results. Wu Wei is that perfect state of flow, where you're so in tune with what you're doing that your actions feel totally spontaneous and natural, and you produce incredible results without any strain. You can think of Wu Wei as this perfect economy of energy. It's the art of getting out of your own way. You stop struggling against the current, and instead you learn how to use its force to guide you. It's achieving peak performance through non-resistance. It's pretty profound. So, the billion-dollar question is, how do we take these powerful, ancient ideas and actually bring them into our super modern lives? How do we redefine not just our work, but our lives themselves?
Well, here's a super practical tool from, of all people, Warren Buffett. It's called the 5-25 rule. It's simple. Step 1, list your top 25 goals. Step 2, circle the 5 that matter the most to you. And now, here's the most important part. Step 3, you have to actively avoid the other 20. They're not your backup plan. They're your avoid-at-all-cost list, because they are the most tempting distractions from what really truly matters.
And that, right there, is the whole philosophy in a nutshell. Real success, real effectiveness, it doesn't come from saying yes and just piling more on your plate. It comes from the discipline of saying no. It's like a modern corporate version of Wu Wei. Stop trying to force everything and just pour your energy where it flows the best.
Because in the end, this whole conversation, it isn't just about productivity hacks to get more done. It's about reclaiming the only thing we can never get back, our time. That construction worker's math is just staggering. An entire extra year of his life back with his family. So it leaves us with one final and really important question to think about. What would you do with that time?